I would like to welcome Enrique from We Are Atheism. They have a website, weareatheism.com, also a Facebook group, We Are Atheism, which you can search for on Facebook and find. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
Good. What is an atheist?
An atheist is one who does not believe in a god or gods. It's basically a single position on a single claim. Do you believe in a god? If you answer yes, then you are either a deist or a theist. If you answer anything other than yes, then you are some type of atheist, in my opinion.
And is atheism a religion?
No, there are no tenets, dogmas, authorities. It's just that single position. So I don't know how a religion can be, drawn from that. I've always thought of a religion, at least in its application, as the dogmatic assertion of truth. At least when I've encountered those who consider themselves religious, especially kind of the new agey people who don't believe in a god but believe in the universe as some sort of cosmic feeling entity that kind of cared what you did but really didn't, but it's not a god they would emphasize. So I just kind of the dogmatic assertion for truth is kind of just more what I encounter on a daily basis of what a religious person is.
A lot of theists argue that since the universe exists, it must have a creator. What is the weakness in that argument?
Well, the only thing that a universe existing demonstrates is that a universe exists. If it were a creation, which that would denote a creator. However, hasn't been any sort of evidence suggested of what of this universe being created. Furthermore, there really hasn't been, there really hasn't been a distinction, because creation is a distinction that we draw from nature. So without that distinction, creation just kind of becomes meaningless, because what does an uncreated universe look like? And I never really found a sufficient answer to that, nor have I heard of the evidence that would suggest that this universe was created at all.
Do you believe that people are more prone to be religious based upon where they're born or what family they were born into?
No, I think the data clearly shows that. You're more likely to be a Muslim if you're born in certain countries, and you're more likely to be a Christian if you're born in certain countries. It seems that the proof is in the pudding on that one, and there's atheists just dotted in between, and non-believers, agnostics, whatever they like to call themselves. But that seems to be the main thrust. But I would say there's a lot of facets that go into what makes a person believe in a certain proposition. But that's a big one for sure.
And what are some common misconceptions about atheists?
Well, that we believe in nothing. That's probably the biggest one, because essentially Christians or theists or whatever tend to believe that God is everything, and the more in kind of the way things are, I guess the idea of God now, they kind of believe that God is this all-encompassing thing that exists behind time and space somehow, but interferes in reality whenever it feels like it. So they get this idea that even though the older ideas of God were more of a Zeusy human God that got jealous and stuff, but anyway, once that idea comes into a person's mind, then not believing in that idea kind of assumes that the person who doesn't believe it doesn't believe in anything, which is of course not true. I believe in all sorts of things.
What is the purpose of We Are Atheism?
Essentially, it's kind of like the and I'm going to butcher the name of the campaign again, but the same campaign for homosexuals that essentially allows them to come out and to be recognized among their peers, to let them know that they're not alone, that that things do get better, that just because the people surrounding them now hate them because they simply changed how they view the world. We wanted to give those people a place to go and to feel comfortable, and also to kind of understand a little bit more about what their disbelief really entails. I think a lot of people happen upon atheism as just something that, oh, well, I guess I don't believe in God, and then they're just kind of not sure what to do with that. We've given them an outlet to kind of tell their story, and then via that, people are able to just discuss their stories, see the common areas, and also discuss things on our website or in Facebook. To just kind of be comfortable with each other, and I definitely helped a few individuals that were afraid of their parents or afraid of their friends or afraid of losing them, more specifically, because of their disbelief. And I don't want people to to feel like they're alone, because they're not. There's lots of people who don't believe and who are skeptical over the things that that people in white robes and pointy hats say.
Why do you think there's so much resistance to the atheist movement? What are some of the challenges that someone may face if they were to come out as an atheist?
Well, there's kind of two different questions there. The second one, some of the challenges that people may face would just be kind of the misconceptions about atheism. Like an individual may, they may say, well, how do you explain this? Or how do you explain that? Because they'll usually go back to the very beginning of the universe, because frankly, science has already, for the most part, answered all the questions that religion used to take all the all the credit for answering, but answered them wrong. So they'll usually just go back to some currently not quite understood piece of science, or late, like early beginning of the universe history, and ask the person how to explain that. But the thing is that as an atheist, you don't really have to explain anything. You could say I don't know to everything, including evolution, whether or not evolution is the best explanation for the diversity of life on Earth, and you could still be an atheist with completely sound reasons. I don't know is a completely acceptable answer in atheism. So that's probably one of the first things that they would encounter. And probably the second thing is the moral argument, which has always kind of failed me, or failed in my opinion, because they'll ask something to the effect of, if there's no authority, then why do you why do you have a purpose in life, or why do you not get up and kill people? Some variation of that, going in different spectrums of those two sides. They'll they'll try to accuse you as like, oh my, you don't have a moral compass at all, because there is no God. You don't believe in this book. But that seems to be just very easily put down, because people read the Bible and the Quran and all that stuff, and they still make moral judgments about it. You have to evaluate these things based on your own morals. So there is no objective morality. There's just people subjectively saying that there's an objective morality, and you can't get around that until God decides to put the 10 Commandments in the stars, or actually appear in front of everybody on Earth every day to discuss what the morality of certain action is, which never has happened. So it's just us, as far as I know.
You mentioned the scientific theory of evolution. Science and atheism are not the same thing.
Correct.
And I've heard the argument made that science and atheism are married somehow. That all of the people pushing science are atheists, and all the people that are atheists are following science. I've even heard science be called a religion before.
I've definitely heard people call science a religion, and to be honest, some people have kind of used it in that way, in the sense that they've forgotten what science actually is. And science doesn't talk about truth. It talks about it evaluates different degrees of certainty about things, and it rules out poor hypotheses. So some people kind of go overboard with their the discoveries that science have made, and you'll see Facebook, or you'll see little news articles and stuff where a particular study or whatever goes out, and they'll extrapolate something crazy from it, the God particle was discovered, therefore there is no God because he's a particle, or from the religious, there is a God and he's a particle. So it just seems like people like to draw people like to draw their own conclusions based on the evidence, where the method of science is really just establishing things to greater and greater degrees of certainty. So and it could be demonstrated wrong. People kind of get on some scientists like Krauss and say, well, they're talking about these things like they're certain, like it couldn't have happened any other way. And what they're really doing is they're just using the evidence that's there and saying, hey, we have seen nothing to contradict this. It doesn't mean that something may not come along and they'll change their minds if it does. But that's basically the idea. And anybody can bring evidence to contradict anything in science. And then if they contradict something like evolution, then they basically get a Nobel Prize, because that's what science wants. They want to understand that it wants, it's a mechanism for understanding reality, and reality is we understand it to be separate from us. So as far as we can tell, biocentrism kind of mixes that up a bit, but from what we can tell, whether or not we're here, reality just keeps on trucking, and science is doing its best to kind of understand how it trucks along.
How long have you?
What was the first question?
I'm sorry. When did you realize you were an atheist?
Let's see. I realized that I was an atheist. I don't know. I couldn't tell you the exact date. It wasn't really. It kind of was more of a. It was kind of more of a. Oh man, I've realized I've been an atheist this whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of. So that my roommate will get that, but I kind of picked up on it, I guess, when I was 19 or 20, and then I just kind of went from there. Kind of I started watching a lot of atheist experience to just kind of I don't know, just kind of get an idea. I really like just watching Christian callers in general, just kind of get smoked. But I don't know. I couldn't tell you exactly when I got it, an exact date, but I can tell you that I started a Catholic, then I went to just kind of like one of those cafeteria Christians, and I went to kind of a pantheist sort of idea of things after investigating a whole lot of religions and finding them to be equally without evidence. And then, I was just basically, do I believe in God? I asked myself a question after watching the Atheist Experience, I think. And it was like, do I believe in God? No. Or not, no, I don't know. I don't think so. And I've, just kind of discovered that the definition of atheism, that's what I was. So I just, kind of just went with it.
And how did your family react to you coming out as an atheist?
My dad, wasn't really, he kind of just asked me some of those initial questions that we talked about. Well, where do you, get your morality from? Blah blah blah. And I gave him, those answers. My mom was a little bit more so. She kind of just treated it like a phase, which kind of got my nerves. But it was better than her getting all upset and stuff about it. But eventually, after discussing with her, I think she's finally got the idea of where I'm coming from, and I know where she's coming from, and that's really what we can expect. I think that's the best we can expect from both of them and each other. And we love each other, so that's we're not going to let something like that ruin our relationship as mother and son.
Do you believe that there's a discrimination against atheists in the United States?
Well, certainly. I mean, there's discrimination written in the law books, and in my home state, I'm currently in Texas. There are laws that say that if you don't, believe in a higher power, then you can't hold office. Now, these laws are Christians would argue, and people in the state would argue that they're not enforced, and that's true. There's no test for religious conviction or anything like that. It's just, I think it's pretty obvious that when you take a look at some of the surveys that came out in the last couple of years, where atheists is the most distrusted minority, and stuff like that. I think that sort of kind of demonstrates the problem that's in the United States and all over the world. But as far as everyday discrimination goes, I don't really find that it happening in my daily life, because I don't really, since I don't believe in God, I don't really bring it up, and really most people that I hang out with normally don't usually bring it up to me. So, the everyday stuff is just, I don't really notice it. It doesn't really affect my life.
What advice would you give somebody who is an atheist but might be secretive about it, who is afraid to admit to it because of fear that their family may reject them or that society may look down on them?
Well, I guess there's kind of two ways to interpret that question. The first is if they're a closeted atheist, where they're not telling, the people around them that they are in fact an atheist. I say that the people who are in that position are in the best position to make decisions as to how they act. I think that about everybody. Everybody is in charge of their own actions and how they're going to approach the world. So if they have good reasons for, like if they believe that, their wife is going to leave them because she doesn't quite understand the position or something like that, or their family will disown them, or if I've had a lot of young kids, in the 13 to 15-year-old range who still live with their parents, who are closeted because they just don't want to have a situation where they're constantly being proselytized by their parents, or made to go to church even more because because their parents think that that's going to fix it. So what I tell those people is like, do what you can live with. If you're going to be in a situation where you're legally bound basically to live with your guardians, and they're not, being particularly abusive, but they're being dicks, then, then maybe you want to just keep that under your tongue to just kind of keep the peace. But again, they would be in the best position to determine that. It's whatever they can live with. If I personally, I got to a point where I couldn't just be like, hey, I'm a Christian, or keep silent on certain issues, and that's just kind of where I just start being a vocal atheist. But for those who are just closeted and not wanting to tell people, it's up to them. I don't want to, I think it's just kind of, I don't like to liken it to, because atheism is kind of a choice, while homosexuality is something that you're born with. Though I would argue that everybody's born atheist. But anywho, I would just say that it's whatever you can deal with. And is the second kind of part of that question was, at least in my mind, what if a person was a closeted atheist even from themselves, which is something that I see more in people who kind of take this new agey sort of idea of what life is, and they'll talk about the universe and energy and all this stuff, and they'll use the words not quite in the way that they're intended to be mean, the woo that we may have discussed earlier. They don't believe in any sort of God really, but they're much too afraid to admit to themselves that they're an atheist, because in their mind, an atheist is just a hard-nosed skeptic who believes in nothing, and has closed the door on the supernatural and the spiritual realm or all this nonsense. But that's not really what it that's not really what it is. So to those people, I would just I would just say, relax. An atheist is someone who just doesn't believe in the God or gods. Do you believe in a God or gods? And if they say no, then you're an atheist. That's just, I think that's just kind of something that they need to just own up definition-wise. But as far as people who know that they're an atheist and don't want to tell people, that they're in the best position to make up their, how to do that.
And what's your view on the separation of church and state?
That it's good. The separation of church and state, or at least the freedom of religion in the United States, have made the United States the most religiously diverse country, in the world, I think, if you go by denominations of different things. So it has prevented, one, it prevents any particular religion from taking hold, which is, we know how that works. And two, it prevents, or at least it's supposed to prevent people from making decisions for other people based on stuff that only they and a subset of other people believe. Unfortunately, that doesn't always work out, but we're trying.
If the separation of church and state is to be taken verbatim, then why do we have "In God We Trust" on money?
Because back in the 1950s, there was a fear of communism, and like today, there's still this weird equivocation fallacy that equates communism and atheism, where atheism is positioned on one question, and communism essentially is making the state a god, a thing to be reveled and worshipped and stuff like that. So back in the 50s, they decided that, well, we're gonna distinguish ourselves from these communists, and we're going to make this a God-fearing country, just like we've been saying for blah blah blah. And there we go. We got the thing on the money. It's not. It is about a violation of the separation of church and state, and it should be removed. I haven't. It's something that I want to happen, but frankly, we print enough money as it is, and I think that printing a whole bunch more money that just for the sake of getting that off is probably probably not the first thing that we should be focusing on as a nation, but it is a big violation and should be removed. There should be no God anything on anywhere, and Pledge Allegiance or coins or state houses. The whole thing is a clear endorsement of religion, which is not supposed to happen by per the Constitution. So yeah, pretty clear.
Are there a lot of atheist groups in Texas?
I mean, there's the most famous one is probably the ACA, the Atheist Community of Austin, which I live in Austin, which I'm actually not a member of the group. In the sense that I haven't paid my fees. I'm always working Sunday, so I haven't really paid my fees because I'm never available at the times that they go out and do stuff or to go see the show. But I'm about to start having Sundays off, so I'll go ahead and start joining up with them. I understand that. I think in Austin there's quite a few groups, at least as far as the meetup website is concerned. Mm-hmm. But from there, I think as it radiates out to to rural country and to the more conservative cities like Houston and Dallas, you'll find them dwindling. But to tell you the truth, I network more through the internet than I do in person, because this is my atheism, or at least my atheist activism. Where I just messed up the word. I want to say activism, but that's wrong. Help me out. Activist is my atheist. I guess that was the right thing, but that is. I don't really hold that as the first thing in my mind, so I haven't really looked into all the groups that are available in Texas, except for when somebody asks me, in which case I'll do a Google search. So I'm not really sure, but there's a few. They're concentrated in Austin, I know that, and then from there on out, it's just kind of sparse.
And we mentioned the woo word earlier. What's your take on that?
Well, from what I understand, and I still haven't remembered the gentleman's name, but he's the Skeptic magazine editor or president. He seemed to have developed woo when discussing or talking about Deepak Chopra, who he would refer to as the king of woo or whatever. I don't think he actually does, but to me, Deepak Chopra is the king of woo, because what he does is he takes a bunch of sciencey sounding words and things and puts them all together, and then mixes it with spiritual sounding words, and then asserts it as something that actually happens in reality, without really understanding the definitions of anything that he said in the context of when they're used, when he usually quotes people. So woo to me is just whenever somebody gives you some sort of verbal gymnastics that doesn't really mean anything with the definitions that are classically attributed to those words.
It sounds almost like the opposite of critical thinking.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's just really the opposite of just having a rational conversation. In the beginning of most rational conversations, or if you look at legal documents and scientific documents or something, there's a long list of definitions of stuff that they need to define in order for people to know what they're talking about. And Deepak Chopra and other facilitators of woo, they don't do that. They just kind of let the words fall where they may, and kind of wow some of their followers, or people who listen and take them seriously, which I hear is Hillary Clinton for those voters coming up next year.
Do you think Hillary will get the nomination?
I don't know. I haven't really been following it from, but I mean, that seems to be what the parties are looking towards. Mm-hmm. To be honest, I don't follow either party. I'm kind of ever since Citizens United, and before that, I've just kind of followed the money. And,
interesting that you brought that up. I interviewed a fella just a few minutes ago who called in, who's also an atheist, and anybody who has followed my writings or the show also knows I'm an atheist too. But
cool.
He actually brought up the Citizens United ruling as something that disenfranchised him politically, and I have to agree with that. And it's funny that we all three kind of click on that level, and it has nothing to do with atheism at all.
No, not at all. I mean, to me, I think it's common sense when you actually evaluate the decisions that these lawmakers make, mm-hmm. in conjunction with their highest, the people who donate the most money to them. It's like, oh, and you were surprised that happened when George
right.
Bush bailed out one company and not the others. It seems pretty clear. And some people will call that conspiracy, and I would just call it evidence. But
that's just politics, unfortunately.
Yeah.
American politics. It's the best democracy money can buy. Somebody phrased it one time.
Definitely. I mean, but to tell you, but to be honest, to be the I guess the contrarian source, this is exactly what Americans wanted. I mean, if you look at the voting records, and the turnouts and the general apathy that Americans demonstrate when they discuss politics en masse. It's just we Americans wanted a country that that would run without them, and that kind of defeated the entire idea of democracy. So people who are eager for power and people who wanted to make money, they found easy pickings, and here we are.
Who are some of your role models that are popular people in the eyes of the general public?
Well, I love Neil deGrasse Tyson. As far as a living role model is concerned, he's the Cosmos series has been a really great series, and he's always presented himself like a gentleman. He's never, in my summation of him, and I, of course, I don't claim to read everything he's ever written or anything like that, but like from what I've seen, he seems to be an individual that is still curious, and still in love with science. And I think that sometimes there comes a point where a scientist or a particular individual will kind of become more in love with themselves. But I think that at least scientists to their credit, they kind of waver between those things depending on how their respective their respective hypotheses and stuff kind of play out in the general arena. I guess I also love Kurt Vonnegut. I named my dog after Christopher Hitchens.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. There's a lot of people that I really respect and I admire, and I'd hate to leave any of them out, but there's so many. It's just I think that there's aspects of individuals I respect as more than the individuals themselves. Sometimes I respect honesty. I respect a recognition of hypocrisy and irony in life, even within themselves. I think George Carlin was one of the best. I think I have my religion status in Facebook as George Carlin because the man is hilarious, and I think I wrote my Bible as the South Park episodes till season 10 or something like that. But it's just I find myself most comfortable in satire and those types of things. So like smart, articulate, funny people are the people I tend to gravitate to.
Yeah, one thing great about Neil deGrasse Tyson is he's very articulate and he's very charismatic. He has a way of explaining science in layman's terms.
Yeah, and also a way that doesn't alienate even those who are believers, and I think that's useful, especially when I was still a believer. It would be his type of interaction that really dissuaded me from the bullheadedness of religious thinking, because it was more about love with the universe, whatever that entails. That's I find that to be a really respectable position.
How do you feel about religious apologetics?
In general, religious apologetics is basically the art of making your bullshit not smell. It seems to be the way things go. And one of my favorite apologists, or at least one of the ones that I find most fascinating, is Cy Ten Bredigan, who comes from and I probably mispronounced that, I don't care, but he comes from the same stuff as Eric Hovind. Or I'm not sure which one spawned either, or which one spawned the other, or if they just kind of both simultaneously arose. But they essentially they presuppose God, which is why they're called presuppositional apologists. So what they do is they say that God is necessary for knowledge, and they justify this with, or at least Cy does, with a single quote from the Bible. So according to Psi, everybody, including atheists, believe in know a God exists. Everybody knows that it does, and specifically the Christian God, which is great because you could just gapingly point at the world and be like, but this is his argument, and his argument is that everybody who doesn't believe in this or who claims not to believe in this Christian God are doing so just so that they can sin, essentially. So his argument presupposes the idea of a God in order to talk about anything, and essentially he tries to find fault in what's the word I'm looking for, and see the I don't want to get the words confused, but he tries to find holes in how people know things, and essentially states that since a skeptic like myself, who would admit to be potentially wrong about, I could be potentially wrong about anything, but I know things to certain degrees of certainty. He sees the recognition of our fallibility, or at least on the atheist side, as a win for him, and I thought that was just precious. He likes to argue from the idea that he's special. It's almost like he considers himself a prophet in his own sense, because Cy 10 Brannigan has his God directly communicating and letting Cy know what's right. So there's certain, so when a skeptic like myself would say, well, I could be wrong about, I could be wrong about anything. There's a tiny, minute possibility that we could just be a brain in the jar, or something like that. He'll, claim absolute 100% certainty on knowing that, God exists, Jesus was his son, and whatever the rest of the Christian mythology. And he knows that 100% true, and there's nothing at all that can deter him, and he won't argue with evidence because he supposes, because he's a presuppositionalist, that the very fabric of which evidence is based, essentially, in knowledge and reason and logic, all come from God. And there's a couple ways to, besides just kind of ignoring him, because really any conversation with a person who's already admitted that they cannot be wrong is not a conversation. You're just squawking at each other. And whenever I've seen him debate, and I've just been kind of punishing myself just because I find it so fascinating that that they'll just sit there and they'll squawk at each other with an individual on the atheist side discussing how we come to colloquially, recognize ontologically recognize the world around us through our senses, and that we independently verify these things so we can be closest to absolute certainty possible about certain things. And his response is invariably, well, how do you know that? Do you know? Is it absolutely true that you can't that you know reality by this and that? And so he kind of tries to get you tricked up with language to get you to admit absolute certainty about some things, which I can for certain things. But he seems to view that this is like the huge gaping hole in the atheist position, or which is really not a position, the atheist response, skeptic's response. When he's going off of a book that couldn't have known, because another thing that he says that another thing that he discusses as a way that about truth is by the scriptures, that what's true because the scriptures say it's true. The thing is that the scriptures, God apparently exists before most of the scriptures did, and so did people. That seems to be agreed upon in the Bible and so on. So they wouldn't have known truth then. So how can the people who wrote the Bible actually be true? Actually know that what they're writing is true, because they haven't written in the Bible that God is where logic starts, or where all reason starts. He has a particular quote, one quote that he uses. So I just find that interesting, that there are literally some people that are so just sucked up in their own nonsense, basically smelling their own farts, that can't be dissuaded, and frankly are most likely intellectually honest about the things that they actually believe, because I don't see how anybody could I don't know. I sometimes I know for a fact that when he's saying some of these things to atheists, he's doing so knowing full well that he's using the same cognitive properties as they are, and he knows full well that they don't consider God as part of the equation. So it's really interesting, and I suggest people go and just kind of take a look at some presuppositional apologetics, because when a presuppositionalist first starts asking you questions, they're attempting to bait you for certain answers so they can, bring the gavel down and say, aha, so you don't have a logical worldview or something like that. And it's just a big song and dance to make them feel better about their a priori assumptions. So I just wanted to mention that because apologists are fun, and they're all over the internet. It's like the multiplier or something.
How would they react to their own questions about their beliefs?
To their own questions, well, they've got God, and right. It's absolutely circular. I think some individuals who have broken this down on YouTube have broken it down to three premises. God must exist. I can't even remember them. They're so stupid. But it's just God must exist. The Bible says that because logic and reason exist, God must exist. God exists at the very end. So it's you start with your assumption, and then you somehow find yourself at that conclusion. Weird how that works.
Are you a fan of any science fiction?
Oh yeah, I love it.
What's your favorite?
Well, there's a couple of genres that I like. When I was a kid, I read pretty much every Alien versus Predator book, so I would call that genre fiction before science fiction for sure.
Right.
But obviously I like Philip K. Dick. I like I would consider that some of the things that Kurt Vonnegut wrote science fiction, like Sirens of Titan and Timequake. Those are some of my favorite books. Yeah, I love, and of course the movies and TV shows that come out. I find that even in the worst movies and TV shows, that there's some sort of fascinating scientific question or future issue about life. Like this was actually a good movie about Her. I thought that was a really interesting take on what it is to be a sexual being in an arena where there's more than one consciousness. And I think that in general that our species is kind of inhibited greatly by the fact that we haven't really been able to communicate in the same way that we communicate with each other outside of our own species. So we kind of think ourselves special, and I don't think that's the case.
Do you think that alien contact would change humanity?
Yeah, I would hope so. What? I'm sorry. What did you say?
And how so? How would it change humanity?
I suppose that would depend on the aspects of the contact. I mean, if we were attacked by aliens, then we'd be more inclined to join as one race, one species against another. As has happened in when one country, one island invades another or something like that. Or one country invades another continent or something like that. People tend to get together. Not all the time, obviously, but they tend to get together to fight a common cause. I guess so. I guess that's one thing, and I guess I also think that the Star Trek idea is I think that's possible as well. That if people just kind of saw a more because I think people immediately assume, and they may very well be right, that any species that's capable of interstellar travel and coming to say hello to us is probably superior in one form or another. So I think that people may kind of hopefully not treat them as gods, but at least treat them as an authority which to take good advice from. So I think that was kind of the way that the Star Trek thing went along, but don't quote me on that. I'm not as much of a Trekkie as I should be. Yeah, that's I think it would be mostly a positive thing unless we're all dying or something like that.
Because of the I guess genre of the website, I asked that question also out of my own curiosity. I always thought if aliens were to attack the planet, it would actually be pretty simple if their goal was just to wipe out humanity. All they would have to do is find the right sized rock and park it in the right spot and let gravity do the rest.
Yeah, no, I think most of the ideas that come from the aliens attacking Earth for one is usually due to harvest water. But even that, like at least scientifically, it's a bit flawed because there's water pretty much everywhere, and it's probably a lot easier to get to where it's all frozen on the outer skirts of the universe. But I think there's probably some credence to the ideas of conquest for mineral deposits, stuff like that. But I'm not about to tell the aliens what they want to do with us, I guess. But yeah, I don't think they've actually been. I guess kind of in reference to the website that sometimes watches the show. I don't think that I haven't seen any compelling evidence that would suggest that aliens have visited Earth and had any interaction with humans that I can tell.
If they did, it would definitely challenge some theistic beliefs.
Oh sure. I mean the whole idea that the universe is created for us is pretty much out. So I guess their heads would invariably shrink. Some, or at least some of them would, who are more who are inclined to believe their own eyes, and who trust the fossil record and stuff like that, instead of thinking that the fossil record is some sort of satanic conspiracy or something like that.
Yeah, they found a new skull within the past. Actually, they found it 8 months ago. They just put a press release out on it. They found a pretty good evolutionary find in Georgia. If you want to look that up later.
Yeah, I'll definitely check it out. I think I know what you're talking about. Was it a piece of a skull that they kind of sculpted out?
I believe it's an entire. They're mentioning specifically the skull, but I believe it's an entire family with with an animal present that could have been a pet or domesticated kind of creature. They didn't elaborate on what that was, so I don't know.
Well, yeah, they're doing the right thing scientifically, and looking before they speak.
Well, I want to thank you for your time, and you came on very short notice, and you didn't know anything about me or the program before yesterday, and I appreciate you taking me up on the offer to do a quick interview.
Yeah, I had a great time. Awesome.
Thanks for your time, Enrique, and again, he is with We Are Atheism, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, the site is weareatheism.com.
That is correct.
And
go ahead.
And also the Facebook group, We Are Atheism, which is a support group for atheists.
Yeah, and we also have Atheist Giving Aid, which is our charity organization that we often the criticism of atheist or point, I guess, is that that churches do so much charity, where we don't have the numbers or the funds, but we do our best. And if anybody wants to help out with our charity and help, or has an idea of some people who need some help, with our from our charity, go ahead and give us a contact on the page, and we want to do our best, and and we hope that you do, you the listener, I suppose, do too.
Okay, thank you, Enrique.
All right, take it easy, Chris.
Thank you for listening to LOP Radio, LUnaticoutpost.com. Take care of yourself. Be good to each other. This is Entropy. Goodbye.